I'm Emily Newman.
And I'm Miranda Sequeira.
And I'll be bringing a segment to you on the availability of fresh water. Across the globe, we are experiencing a lack of fresh water. While 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water, 97% of the water is in the ocean, or salt water. Out of the 3% of the world's water that is fresh water, or consumable, 1/4 of it is underground. The other 3/4 is above water, but mostly in glaciers and ice. The accessible water comes from in the form of streams, rivers, wetlands, and lakes. The water below ground exists in aquifers, which are a collection of small spaces within permeable rock layers. Aquifers that are made of porous rock and are covered by soil are called unconfined aquifers. These aquifers are easily permeated, while aquifers that cannot be permeated are called confined aquifers. These are surrounded by impermeable rock or clay. The surface of the groundwater is the uppermost level of the water that is stored underground. This is called the water table. Precipitation percolates through the soil into the aquifer unless it falls into an area of a confined aquifer because it cannot permeate the rock in this case. This is why many aquifers cannot be recharged. The only way a confined aquifer would be able to recharge is if it had a recharge area or an opening at the ground surface. Aquifers are an essential provider of fresh water to organisms, especially plants whose roots permeates into the water table. In some cases, water from the aquifers permeate to the surface to create springs. Springs are an important source of fresh water to aquatic biomes and can be used for drinking water for humans. Aquifers were discovered by humans centuries ago and responded by digging up wells to pump up the water. When people dig into a confined aquifer, pressure is released and brought up into artesian wells. If the pressure is strong, the water goes up to the surface without a pump. Water is being withdrawn for household, agricultural, and industrial use at a faster rate than it can recharge, meaning we could run out of water from confined aquifers in this century. When more water exits than enters an aquifer, the water table drops into a cone of depression. This means that springs stop bubbling up, spring-fed streams dry up, and many wells don't reach the water table anymore. This issue can also cause reduced water quality. As for wells near the coastline, salt water can be infused into the water it collects, making the water salty. This is called saltwater intrusion.
Breaking news! We just got word of a flood in California. Due to the recent droughts that have been occurring in California, the dried out soil and impermeable surfaces have not allowed for the soil to absorb the precipitation that has been coming in. Emergency officials voluntarily evacuated 650 homes in the low-lying communities of Monte Rio in the Sonoma County as the Russian River continues to rise Sunday evening. The river has overflowed its banks and has created a floodplain where the excess water spreads out onto the land adjacent to the river. Many houses have been destroyed, but luckily no deaths have been recorded. Rainfalls in northern Jersey has caused lakes to rise feet above their average capacity. Lake Hiawatha has been influenced by some flooding. As opposed to glaciation, Lake Hiawatha is said to be created when a chain of volcanic islands collided with the North American plate many years ago. Lake Hiawatha is considered to be a mesotrophic lake, or a lake with moderate levels of productivity, compared to oleographic lakes that have low productivity, or eutrophic lakes with high levels of productivity. This flood has damaged some homes, but the community is on a speedy road to recovery.
Hi, I'm Emily Newman, and I'm coming to you from a major storm in Secaucus, New Jersey. In cases like this, we can see how rainfall affects unconfined aquifers. In cases like this, the rainfall will take pesticides in the land and, through runoff, infect unconfined aquifers. This is why many people prefer the quality of confined aquifers because they have water from 20,000 years ago or more. But this leads to an issue of recharging the aquifers because unconfined aquifers can recharge in a night while confined aquifers recharge every 20,000 years or so. This is one of the main reasons why the aquifer in the Great Plains will probably run out of water in this century. Now to Miranda. Runoff.
I'm Emily Parker, and today I will be interviewing environmentalist Kathleen Pascal. we will be discussing water ownership, conservation, and sustainability. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Ms. Kathleen Pascal.
Hi there, thanks for having me today. It's so exciting to be here.
Happy to have you. So tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you and what have you been doing?
Well, for the past 7 years, I've been specifically working as a hydrologist studying the patterns in which we use water. I also encourage others to use water efficiently because it's essential to life and on.
Great. So lately there's been a lot of talk about the conflict on the concept of water ownership. Can you offer some insight?
Yes, of course. What many people don't understand is that having the right to use water is not the same as owning water. Typically, water is used and is owned and distributed by local and national governments, meaning that they decide the quantity of water each area is provided. Sometimes this can create issues because owners of water have no control over how much precipitation occurs, which makes it difficult for owners to accurately and evenly distribute water sources.
In some areas, there is definitely a scarcity of water, which makes it a challenge for owners to determine appropriate distribution. Do you know of any proposed solutions to obtain and distribute water efficiently?
Some economists are considering allowing different parties to openly compete for water and allowing the market to determine its price. A similar system has been implemented in Chile in the 80s, where individuals and companies buy and sell water in a free market. The economists supporting the system reasoned that it would encourage efficient use of water. However, the system does not provide for the general public and those who cannot afford to compete for water as an essential resource.
So ultimately, we all have to share a finite amount of water. In some regions, water is abundant, and in others, there is definitely a scarcity. This can easily cause an uneven distribution of water because its absence in certain areas. How do we go about using this water efficiently and making sure to conserve the water that we do have?
Recently developed countries such as the U.S. has begun figuring out ways to conserve water through technological improvements in water fixtures, faucets, and washing machines. Federal standards in the United States have been put in place on toilets and shower heads that ensure that only the necessary amount of water is used per flush and per shower.
Is there any information on how washing machines deplete our resources of water? They are an appliance that uses a lot of water per load and can easily abuse water sources in areas that have little to waste. Have washing machines been subjected to federal standards to ensure that the appropriate quantity and quality of water is being
Federal
used?
standards have not been issued for washing machines. However, newer, more efficient front-load machines are now available to consumers. Some brands have begun reducing the amount of water used in each laundry cycle, which conserves our resources, but unfortunately makes the process more time-consuming and can make the machine more expensive. Additionally, other hydrologists are investigating recycling water that is used currently in the laundry cycles.
As we know, energy-efficient resources such as electric cars can be very expensive. How does a consumer go about purchasing the most resource-efficient washing machine without breaking their bank?
As of now, the most efficient washing machine is the LG WM9500. This machine uses 5,437 gallons of water per year. This is significantly less than the majority of other machines. Additionally, LG is on the track to recycling the water that they use in each laundry cycle, which makes their machines that much more efficient in comparison to others. Will continue to decrease as more water-efficient technologies continue to develop.
Evidently, sustainability is a crucial part of today's society. How else do you suggest that we can sustainably use our water resources in our daily lives?
Currently, hydrologists are investigating recycling the water that is currently used in laundry cycles. This water is known as gray water, and although it has been used in showers, sinks, and washing machines, it is still safe to use for watering plants, washing cars, and flushing toilets. By replacing fresh water with gray water, when it is safe and appropriate, we are conserving fresh water, which then can be used for showers, sinks, and drinking water.
That sounds like a simple but major opportunity for water conservation and sustainability. I will definitely start to watch my water usage, and next time I need a new washing machine, I'll make sure to keep your tips in the back of my mind. Thank you so much for being here. You have a lot of insight on this topic. It was a pleasure having you.
Of course, thank you.
Good morning. I am currently out in the field, and above me is a levee, and a large bank built upon each side of the river that prevents flooding. Mississippi River has the largest levee in the world, with 2,400 kilometers. There are negatives to levees, however, as they decrease the fertility of the land, as the natural floodwater will no longer add sediments on the floodplains. Also, the sediments are now carried downstream and go to where the ocean meets the river. Additionally,
They prevent flooding at one location, which is good, but then cause flooding downstream in neighboring cities. They also encourage human settlement in floodplains, yet there is still a probability that these areas work similarly to levees, but they prevent ocean flooding. The dike pumps the water that overflows back into the ocean using electricity and diesel. They allow for areas of the country that would be underwater to be developed in livable land, and the most famous ones are in the Netherlands. Now, dams are barriers that run across a river or stream that control the flow of water. Then it stores it in a reservoir. The water that's held is used for human consumption to generate electricity, such as hydroelectric dams, recreational purposes, and to control flooding. However, the construction of the dams are costly and use many resources and energy. The dams interrupt the natural flow of water, which then affects the migration of fish, such as salmon, which can alter the fish breeding. This then affects the other organisms that depend on them for food sources, such as bears. They prevent seasonal flooding. However, the seasonal flooding disturbs the shorelines and pools, which is favorable to some rare species. Aqueduct canals or ditches use river or lake water and carry it from one location to another. They are most famously known in the Roman Empire, and in the U.S. there is the Catskill Aqueduct in New York and another one in L.A. that is used for daily water. They ensure that the water source is clean, but older aqueducts can lose up to 55% of the water they carry due to evaporation and leakage. Construction is costly and destroys natural habitats, and it decreases the flow of water from the river, such as in the Colorado River, causing it to go dry before they can reach the ocean. In the 1950s, the Soviet Union diverted 2 rivers that went into the Aral Sea. The river diversion decreased the fresh water that entered the Aral Sea, which increased the salinity of the river, which destroyed local fish populations. The diversion of the water caused the Aral Sea to split into 2, the north and the south, and it is drying out, expected to be completely dry in 10 years. Desalination is a process of removing salt from salt water through distillation and osmosis. In distillation, heat boils the water, which then evaporates, leaving the salt. The steam is then condensed back into the water. However, this process requires a lot of energy and money. In osmosis, only the water goes through a semi-permeable membrane at the high pressure. This method is more efficient and cheaper than distillation. However, the remaining water has a high salt concentration, and due to this, it can't be deposited. Systems are costly to build, maintain, and repair, meaning that many poor countries that lack water are unable to implement the water systems, which only continues to perpetuate the problem of people not having water. Hopefully, one day, water systems will be able to be put into these poor countries so that everyone can have.
Thank you, Abby. And now to talk about the different ways in which humans use water. Water is used by humans for agriculture, industry, and household needs. First, we'll talk about agriculture. Did you know that agriculture uses the most amount of water worldwide? India, China, the United States, and Pakistan account for more than half of the irrigated land worldwide. But while agriculture uses the most amount of water, agriculture presents the greatest potential to change irrigation practices in order to conserve more water. There are more than 4 major techniques for irrigation: furrow irrigation, flood irrigation, spray irrigation, and drip irrigation. Another type of agriculture is hydroponic agriculture, which is the cultivation of crop plants under greenhouse conditions, which are not with their roots immersed in nutrient-rich solution. And now to talk about industry. Water is required for many industrial processes such as generating electricity, cooling machinery, and refining metals and papers. 1/2 of water in the U.S. is used towards generating electricity. Some water is recycled back into the water source, but some turns into water vapor and released into the air, which means more water is being wasted for industries. And the refining of metals and papers also requires large amounts of water. Now on to household water usage. In the U.S., 10% of water is used in homes. Per capita household usage of water depends on the infrastructure of the country, so less developed countries use less water. More, 41% is used for flushing toilets, 33% for bathing, 21% for laundry, and 5% for cooking and drinking. California uses 6 times as much water for pools than Pennsylvania, even though they're in a drought. 15% of the world lacks access to clean drinking water, and every year 1.8 million people die of diarrheal diseases related to contaminated water, and 90% of those people are children under 5 years old. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching.
This has been Water for You.